My main point is that Allar hasn't been able to show that he can elevate a team in a ranked or tough matchup, so it's just hard to expect him to do this in the NFL, and quite frankly, it's just hard to see him surviving in the NFL as a starter. As usual, Ewers has been very inconsistent and frustrating to watch this season. He started out the season looking great against Michigan, and thought he may have finally become that quality passer he has the potential to be, but then he put up a poor performance against Georgia, an uneven performance against Vanderbilt, and then went to cruise control for the final few games before having a blunder of a game against Texas A&M. With this being such a loaded running back class and SMU flying under the radar for most of the season due to the broadcast schedule, it's not a surprise that people are missing out on Smith. But the traits are there for a future playmaker and a steal for a team in the upcoming draft. Hey y'all, back with the Conference Championship edition of the College Football Watch List. For this week, I'll be covering my usual 2 quarterbacks, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, and 2 tight ends. With the small slate of games, it's impossible to avoid duplicates in the same games, but thankfully there's still plenty of players worth watching this weekend. For the players, if you would prefer to read through the players instead, you can read them in my Substack article in the description. You can also subscribe to my Substack if you want to keep up with the written articles, and can also subscribe to this channel if you want to stay up to date on the videos. So let's see who could come up huge in their team's effort to win a conference championship. Starting with quarterbacks, I'll be watching quarterback Drew Allar from Penn State. The Drew Allar hype feels like it's usually a roller coaster. Last year, Penn State had a pretty easy schedule to start the year, and then Allar fell back down to earth after facing Ohio State. This year, it kind of was the same story with him falling short against Ohio State again. In general, I think Allar beating up on lesser teams is a very fair criticism, and one that covers his shortcomings. This year against the ranked teams that Allar has played, he's completed 27 of his 41 passes, or a 65.9% completion percentage, which is good, but he also only threw for just 281 yards, or 6.9 yards per attempt, and no touchdowns and just 1 interception. If you include last year as well, that then gets significantly worse and totals out to completing 99 of his 181 passes, or a 54.7 completion percentage, throwing for 1,003 yards, or 5.5 yards per attempt, 8 touchdowns, and thankfully just 2 interceptions. My main point is that Allar hasn't been able to show that he can elevate a team in a ranked or tough matchup, so it's just hard to expect him to do this in the NFL, and quite frankly, it's just hard to see him surviving in the NFL as a starter. 2 seasons ago, we saw CJ Stroud elevate the Texans when he entered the NFL, and this year we're seeing Jaden Daniels and Bo Nix elevate their teams as well this year. Now, those 3 players are clearly better prospects than Allar, but Allar has all the tools to be as good of a prospect as them, so it's just really frustrating to still see him so far from his ceiling. With him still needing big-time improvements, I expect that he'll return to school, but he could decide to declare to take advantage of a weak quarterback class. If he does decide to declare, I'd be shocked if a team does decide to pick him with the plan to play him early, but he'll be in their hands for him to develop properly. We've seen plenty of toolsy, big-body quarterbacks get drafted with that plan, and unfortunately just not a lot pan out, so it just makes me nervous about if he's going to decide to declare this year. If he does have plans to declare, he's going to need to prove that he can play well against ranked teams, and that'll need to start this weekend when he takes on first-ranked Oregon. Penn State has a big opportunity to get a first-round bye, and Allar playing well will be a necessity for this to happen. So be sure to see if Allar can come through against first-ranked Oregon this Saturday at 8 p.m. Eastern. The other quarterback who I'll be watching, who also needs to prove himself more this season, is quarterback Quinn Ewers from Texas. As usual, Ewers has been very inconsistent and frustrating to watch this season. He started out the season looking great against Michigan, and thought he may have finally become that quality passer he has the potential to be, but then he put up a poor performance against Georgia, an uneven performance against Vanderbilt, and then went to cruise control for the final few games before having a blunder of a game against Texas A&M. Like Allar, I just want to see Ewers play up to his potential and take some chances getting the ball downfield. Ewers has a quality deep target in Isaiah Bond, but continues to focus too much on the short areas of the field, with 62.6% of his pass attempts traveling less than 10 yards from the line of scrimmage, which is one of, if not the lowest of the highest projected draft class this coming year. Also, he has one of the lowest completion percentages the times he does drive the ball more than 20 yards from the line of scrimmage, which again is a big red flag. That's just not a recipe for a successful NFL quarterback, especially for someone like Ewers who's limited to being a pocket passer. I was lower than consensus in my mid-season rankings on Ewers, and it's mostly just because I feel like the progression that I was hoping to see has just stalled. I just don't see a way forward right now based on his continued struggles. Maybe things click in the conference championship and the playoffs, but I feel like it could be more of just a pummeling he could take if he doesn't progress. Speaking of pummeling, he'll be looking to avoid a repeat pummeling when the team has a rematch with 5th-ranked Georgia this weekend. While Ewers had a poor showing last go-around, there's a fair point that his offensive line was a big reason for this. So I'll be interested to see if his offensive line holds up better and if Ewers can do more in the air. So be sure to check out Ewers take on 5th ranked Georgia this Saturday at 4 p.m. Eastern. Going to running backs, I'll be very interested to see big-time sleeper running back Brashard Smith from SMU. With this being such a loaded running back class and SMU flying under the radar for most of the season due to the broadcast schedule, it's not a surprise that people are missing out on Smith. In summary, Brashard Smith is a dangerous weapon who is a big-time threat as a rusher and pass catcher. He has great speed and burst and was a former receiver, which shows in the way he can make tough catches and adjust the ball away from his frame. He definitely is a bit undersized, but the traits are there for a future playmaker and a steal for a team in the upcoming draft. I know he's not the only receiver running back convert to do it, but Tyrone Tracy paints a good picture of what Smith can do in the NFL if he continues to progress at the rate he's been going. The thing that makes me even more excited about Smith than Tracy is that Tracy's vision was honestly a hot mess in his final year of college. Now, credit to Tracy for working really hard to improve this and having a lot better lane discipline, but he looks like a way different runner in the NFL than he was in college. Smith, though, has a more firm understanding of how to follow his blocks. If he takes that next step to read leverage and set up his blocks downfield, he can be really special. Honestly, I think Smith is going to be flying up draft boards the more I watch him, and I expect that to be the case for others soon enough. So speaking of that, with a great chance to be able to watch Smith, be sure to check him out this weekend when he takes on a quality Clemson team, who should be a good test for him. Be sure to check him out and watch him when he takes on 17th ranked Clemson this Saturday at 8 p.m. Eastern. For my other running back, I'm going to be going to the opposite sidelines and watching running back Phil Mafah from Clemson. While I'm excited to watch Brashard Smith, I'm a bit nervous to watch Mafah. After having a really good start to this season, he's been really rocky the past few games. He's had a couple of fumbles and has been inefficient as a rusher and receiver, including having a drop that led to the game-sealing interception against South Carolina last weekend. In terms of players in need of a get-right game, I'd say Mafah is well up there, and it's even more important for him to help his team win with the likelihood that Clemson is going to miss the playoffs. So with the clock ticking, it's important that he doesn't end the season on a sour note and at least has a solid performance. If he has a great or remarkable performance, then that's even better. But honestly, I just want to see him have at least a steady performance instead of having either little to no impact or even costing his team in some of his opportunities. On top of not just getting a get-right game, I just need to see Mafah play well against a quality opponent to feel more confident in him. Clemson's only played 2 ranked teams this season, and Mafah's managed to get just 3.8 yards per carry and have just 2.14 yards after contact per attempt. Those are both really bad marks, and he also isn't that useful as a receiver and needs to be a plowing type of back. But if he isn't plowing through players, I just have a hard time seeing him have that much use in the NFL. So to see if he can give me more confidence, be sure to watch Phil Mafah take on 8th ranked SMU this Saturday at 8 p.m. Eastern. Going to receivers, I'll be watching wide receiver Evan Stewart from Oregon. Stewart has been a bit of an enigma this season. He'll have some good games where he comes out and is lights out like he did against Ohio State and Wisconsin, and then other games like this last week against Washington when he managed just a single reception for 4 yards while also having 2 drops. Now, I want to give some context that those were his first 2 drops of the season, so it's not like that's been a continuing theme for him, but this disappearing act has been a week-to-week issue for him. I feel like a broken record saying it, but I just really want to see some consistency from Stewart. He has a skill set to be a top receiver in the class, but just hasn't been executing and producing as one. Other than Travis Hunter, Stewart has some of the best movement skills in this prospective receiver class, but just doesn't show on the field the way that it does for Hunter, Luther Burden III, or the next receiver we'll cover after Stewart. I think his lack of production could be in part due to his smaller frame, which is concerning, and we've seen that hold back former Oregon receiver Troy Franklin in the NFL now. But even if the issue isn't related to his size, I still think that will be an issue that he'll have to overcome. And regardless, if he struggles to be consistent in college on a good offense, I find it hard that he's suddenly going to become consistent in the NFL. So to see if we'll get the Evan Stewart disappearing act, or if we'll get the good receiver prospect who flashes, be sure to watch Evan Stewart take on 3rd-ranked Penn State this Saturday at 8 p.m. Eastern. Now, I mentioned Evan Stewart's section that there's another receiver who moves better than him with the ball in his hands, and that other receiver I'll be watching this weekend is wide receiver Ricky White III from UNLV. White has been putting together a really solid year and has been a consistent force for the Rebels. He's a yak specialist, but his twitch and ball tracking skills show the potential to be a more diverse weapon. He definitely still needs to get there as a route runner to be that, and it's unfortunate that Boise State may be the only ranked team that he gets to play this season if he ends up not going to the team's bowl game. However, I do think that he's definitely taken a step forward and should be recognized for that. I don't believe he's gotten a Senior Bowl or even an East-West Shrine Bowl invite, which is disappointing, but maybe there'll be space for him down the road depending on how injuries shake out. If he does get a chance to go up against quality competition, I'd love to see how he holds up to see if he truly has the talent to succeed against good competition. So with chances potentially being limited to watch white for the rest of this year, be sure to watch him take on 10th ranked Boise State this Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern. So I'm going to be honest here. I could go with Tyler Warren here since he's the only top tight end prospect playing this weekend, but I felt that's such a no-duh type of selection for me, and I honestly don't think Warren has anything more he needs to prove to me personally. So I want to do more of a focus on some of the lower tier tight ends, which is still a really good group with how deep this tight end class is, and I'll be watching tight end Terrance Ferguson from Oregon. I've talked ad nauseum about Ferguson's versatility, so I don't want to talk anyone's ear off with that again. What I do want to talk about, though, is how he was still very much involved with the team this last weekend. With Tez Johnson returning to the lineup, I expected Ferguson to be a minimal contributor, but he actually managed to have a very busy day, tying the team lead in receptions and making 4 receptions for 48 yards and a touchdown. I know, wow, 4 receptions in less than 50 yards, what a big time performance. But just seeing him involved and more impactful than the as-mentioned Evan Stewart bodes well for Ferguson to continue to have a big impact going into this weekend and for the playoffs as a whole. So be sure to see how much of an impact Ferguson can have when he takes on 3rd-ranked Penn State this Saturday at 8 p.m. Eastern. For the final tight end I'll be watching tight end Jake Briningstool from Clemson. Briningstool has had a bit of a letdown of a season. I really liked him last year and loved his size and ability to attack the ball and adjust the ball away from his frame. He can still definitely do that, but he's just struggled with his separation and still isn't getting much work downfield. I think a contributing factor to his separation issues that he put on weight to be closer to a normal tight end weight, and that'll be good in the long term, but he still isn't there as a blocker, and it's lessened his impact as a pass catcher, which just begs the question, why play him over another player? On top of that, he's been struggling with drops a bit after having such great hands last year, which again, if he's going to be a pass catching first tight end, but he struggles to catch the ball, why not play another player over him? It just kind of sucks because I was hoping Briningstool would be a big riser for me, and I'm just kind of getting more questions about him at the next level than I came into with the year. To see if any of those questions get answered, be sure to check out Briningstool when he takes on 8th-ranked SMU this Saturday at 8 p.m. Eastern. And that does it for the players for the conference championship games. As I mentioned before, if you follow my college football stock report, I'll likely be skipping this weekend due to being busy and wanting to prioritize my QB's charting. That being said, I'm still planning to do another watchlist video for the full college playoffs, so to make sure you don't miss that and to keep up with players you should be watching, be sure to subscribe. While you're at it, like the videos, it would help the channel and this series grow thanks to you. And if you want just a written form of the basics of the players to watch, you can again subscribe to my Substack. But thank you all and see you all next time.